We are back with a new video. In this video, we'll be measuring our Z5 light in a 2x2 grow tent. We've previously measured the Z5 light in a 3x3 grow tent, which is 90 by 90 centimeters, and this one is 2x2 or 60 by 60 centimeters. We'll be taking 17 measurements and comparing those to our current light footprint map, which is of the original tent, the larger tent. We want to show you how light spreads when choosing a smaller tent. As the walls are reflective, the photons emitted by the light will be concentrated on a smaller area, thus giving your plants more bang for the buck. We want to do this to show you that it's important to select the smallest possible tent for your grow project. If the tent is larger than the area your plants cover, a lot of photons will go wasted around the edges and simply not be reflected onto your plants. So, choose the smallest possible tent that you can to fit your plants, whatever plants you're growing. Later, we'll compare the two light footprint maps and show you exactly how much more efficient it is to go small. We're going to start measuring on 60 centimeters, which is 25 inches or 2 feet. And we're going to move around the sensor across the floor of the tent. We're on the area that we've already marked, which is a similar pattern as in our current Z5 light footprint map. So we're going to have identical measuring points. The values will just be different because of the size of the tent, and that's what we want to explore today. We have now recorded all the values, all the PPFD values for 61 on a 61 centimeters height, which is 24 inches. All the values have been recorded with an Apogee MQ500 quantimeter. We have the sensor right there, and we've moved the sensor about. And for every new measurement, we put up a mylar wall on the outer side of the tent to get the fully reflective area. And we see here that a center value shows 395 ppfd, which is also what we've noted down. We're now going to continue measuring on 12 inches and then we're going to compare the values to the 3x3 tent. We are now moving on to the 1 feet or 30.5 centimeter distance measurements. The light hangs evenly in the tent at 1 feet 12 inches, and we're going to continue with our PPFD measurements. We're starting in the corner, in the furthest corner, and we're moving the reflective wall to block all light, to make all light reflect into the tent, and we're checking the measurement on our meter. We have 201 ppfd. In the corner, we're continuing by moving the meter one step to the right. Once again, moving the wall back in place and taking the next measurement. 353 something ppfd. We're gonna continue to do the next measurements without camera to keep the speed up, but we'll show all the results soon enough.
Alright, here we are. So the first light footprint map that we're seeing here in the top left corner is for the 2x2 tent that we just measured. Moving on, we're also seeing the values in top right corner from the 3x3 tent that we originally measured in a while back. We're only seeing the values within the 2x2 feet, in the center 2x2 feet, and not the outer edge of the tent, the remaining 1 feet around the tent. We've cut that away so that everything is symmetrical, everything is easy to follow. So we see here right away that the center values, at least for the 12-inch measurement, is not a big difference, but the further we move out to the edges of the tent, we see that the increases are getting bigger and bigger. If we're looking at the 24-inch measurements in black, we see right away that even the center spot there has about 15% higher PPFD than on the compared to the 3x3 tent. Just like the 12-inch measurements, also the 24-inch measurements in black are getting higher and higher the further away from the center that we get. This is quite logical, as the effect we're trying to achieve here by making the tent smaller will be most dominant at or just around the edges of the tent, just at the walls, because it's the walls that are reflecting the photons back into the tent towards the center, but it will still be near the walls that we see the biggest improvements in PPFD levels. So once again, what we're trying to show here is that put your plants in a small space without crowding them, and try to set up your grow tent so that it just encapsulates the plants. The less room you have between your plants and the walls of the tent, the less photons will go wasted. If your plants are essentially touching the walls of the grow tent, the photons that are bouncing back and forth in the tent, they will be reflected by the walls, most of them at least, towards the plant and not go wasted at the bottom. And once again, by making the tent smaller, we have a better reflection of photons towards the area where we grow our plants. So, and that's the end goal, that as many of the photons as possible that are emitted from the lamp reaches the canopy, the intended grow area. If the previous explanation was still a bit vague, here's a quick illustration of how photons spread from any type of light, really. We see that light, the grow lamp in this case, emits photons in all colors, and they're all falling down. So in an unobstructed space, in an open room, these photons would spread and fly about in quite a large area, which is why we're seeing a footprint whenever we look at light. But if we instead put up walls around the plant, the photons would not escape towards the sides, but rather be reflected back onto the plant, and we would get as many photons as possible that are actually being emitted from the lamp onto the area that we want to illuminate, the plant's canopies in this example. So once again, hopefully this will show you clearly why it's smart to use tents to really get the most out of every watt that you put into the light, which is then transformed to photons. And then we want to make sure that as many of these photons actually reaches their intended area, the grow space, the canopy.
All right, here we are again. So if this all has been a bit vague for you, we want to show with a very practical example how closing down or how making a grow space smaller will make the photons more concentrated in the center of the grow area. Here we have 3 mylar walls which we built together with PVC pipes. This is a super easy thing to do. You only need the PVC pipes, some tape and mylar. If you have a grow space that you can't really put a grow tent into, or you just want to make a custom size grow space with reflective walls, this is a perfect way to do it. Super cheap, super convenient, and you can make it exactly the size that you want. So here we have the Z5, we have the Apogee MQ500 sensor in the middle. We're gonna check the PPFD value. Let's see here, we have about 320. on a 61 centimeter height. That's about 2 foot. The distance isn't really that important right now. What we want to demonstrate is how the PPFD value will change as we move the walls closer to each other, or rather when we make the grow space smaller. So we're going to move the two outer walls, and we're going to try to at the same time see how the PPFD changes. So we're moving the walls slowly together to make a smaller grow space, and we can see how the PPFD rises. As the walls become narrower and narrower, as we're making a grow space smaller, we're going to see larger and larger increases in PPFD. This is all due to the photons reflecting off the walls and getting more and more concentrated into the area where we want to grow. So once again, to get the most out of any grow light, you want as small and tight space as possible, but still a space that fits your plants. Any light that doesn't hit your plants is wasted, and that's unnecessary. Calculate how much space you need and then set up your grow area with reflective walls to make it just the size that fits your plants. Here we are again, still testing reflective walls. We have the Z5 at about 24 inches, 24 inches, 2 feet. It's about 1.5 feet from the wall. And we're just going to show you what difference a reflective wall can make for your grow area. So we see people grow in large spaces without any reflection towards their plant, and this is what you're missing out on. With the walls, we have exactly or around 100 ppfd. If we lift the wall, so if the photons do not have any reflective surface to bounce off of, we're instantly losing about half of the light. We're once again moving down the wall to reflect the photons back to the sensor, or in the real world it would be your plants, and we see that the value is once again back to 100 ppfd. This is what difference a wall can make. Also, the further the wall is from your plants, the less photons will be reflected on the plants. The more photons, the more light is wasted. We see how moving the wall closer to the plant, or the sensor in this case, makes the PPFD value go up. This is why it's important to have reflective surfaces. It doesn't necessarily have to be mylar. White walls are also great reflectors, but at least have something. That's all. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to place a comment or email us. We also have plenty more information on our website, and we're going to make a bunch of new videos with cool tricks like this later on. Thank you, and happy growing.